almost like a order to creation that if we follow it, our health and fitness goals will arrive a lot sooner. Almost
making me over, breaking me down, taking me through, taking me over, making me bolder, stronger, making me sober. But this world making me
the other week I did that video where I was in the field and I was doing sissy squats. Now I was surprised the next day because my legs didn't feel sore at all. I was like, huh, because usually with most of my videos you'll see me barefoot, and there are health reasons for that. Pretty much being barefoot on a nice patch of earth, whether it be sand and grass, heck, you can ground through concrete. Touching the earth's surface is kind of like a antioxidant. It deals with inflammation, and from the electromagnetic standpoint, kind of like resets you almost. So one thing that's ignored, not really focused on that much, is how most of our current problems are due to being in an electromagnetic environment different from what humankind has experienced for most of human history. So things have changed a lot since the coming of the telegraph, and it's not covered very much because there's a lot of money involved. Take it from me, I was a communications officer in the Marine Corps, so propagating man-made electromagnetic frequencies all over the planet was my job. So when I really got out, started going down the rabbit holes of the harms of man-made EMF. It doesn't have to be ionizing. It could be non-ionizing that affects us in a lot of ways too. I started looking at this stuff, and all experiences I had in the Marine Corps and out started making a lot of sense. And so, just looking at the body from this electromagnetic perspective, and making changing our lifestyle around that to better our health has led in a lot of improvements for myself. Just less sniffles, better sleep, and so I didn't realize that it could help with fitness as well. I don't know why I never put the two and two together, because there were sometimes I did work out and I'll be grounded, but grounded helps with inflammation, and that's one of the things that hard training does to you. Is give you a lot of inflammation, a lot of soreness. So if you train, just touching the ground, you won't be as sore. And it lends to better recovery. For a period of time, I was working at a gym and was pretty much forced to sell supplements to people, and I use this for pre-workout, I use this for recovery, and if you use that stuff, you have the money for it, and you enjoy the taste of whatever you're given, whatever powder or chemical you're given. To each his own, but creation has a lot of stuff that you can utilize as free. So being on the ground is one of those things. Yeah, the other day I was doing the day prior I was doing some bodyweight tricep extensions. It's pretty much like you'll be on the ground like this, and then propping yourself up. And I went a little bit overboard. My triceps were super sore the next day, and so what I did is that, like later in the evening, I stopped somewhere, like a nice patch of grass, got out, just did like 5 to 10 push-ups every minute, just getting the blood flow while grounded. And the next day I wasn't sore at all. So a couple days ago I went overboard on tricep exercises again. So I did try something different, and I pretty much went super slow, stayed in that shortened position for push-ups, and doing it all while grounded. Sorry, ants. Doing it all while grounded, and I was able to recover a lot quicker. So when it comes to working out, there's always a question of recovery and nutrition. Like I always say, nutrition can be important. I've most of the year, due to religious reasons, I'm largely plant-based. So people always, men in this, part of this belief system are always worried about protein around there certain times of year. But because protein is important for recovery, but when you realize that you can just ground yourself, touching some grass, touching some earth, that can kind of replace that. So you're not really dependent on food as much. And the food discussion is very interesting, watching the past couple of years, carnivore versus vegan, and keto and all this other stuff. And at least for me, kind of tweaking and making sure my electromagnetic environment is a lot better, kind of makes this stuff seem less significant. Not insignificant, but just less significant. So yeah, just having good light, having minimizing the amount of man-made frequencies you're around can do a lot of wonders for your health and for your fitness. So yeah, that's one of the beauties of bodyweight exercise, is that you can do it anywhere, and you can do it grounded. You can use weights grounded, but unless you have like your own backyard, it'll be a little bit hard to execute workouts in that fashion, because you got to bring your weights somewhere, barbells, dumbbells, whatnot. But the bodyweight, you just bring yourself. Sometimes they bring parallettes or gymnastics rings, but I just bring myself, go to a nice patch of earth, and just start working out. It's almost like a order to creation that if we follow it, our health and fitness goals will arrive a lot sooner. Oh yeah. Let's do a few more. That's a cricket. Whew. There we go. The only bad part about grounding is watching out for ants. Most ants will just leave you alone, honestly. If you're near their mounds, then they might be a little more aggressive. But for the most part, they're pretty chill. I once saw an article. It was talking about grounding, how it's ineffective, and pretty much what the title was. And then you go into the article, the guy was talking about grounding mats. Now, grounding mats pretty much gives you almost the same experience as being out in actual nature, but depending on where you live, you know, if you plug that grounding mat into the wall, just ground you where your house is grounded or your apartment. And as long as the situation on the ground around where you live doesn't change, like there's no new power grid installation or anything like that, you'll still have that same benefit. But if the ground current changes, be less effective over time. But in this article, he was pretty much saying, grounding hasn't worked, blah blah blah, and he goes down. It's like, yeah, I was only talking about grounding mats. Wasn't talking about actual, going outside and touching the earth. And unfortunately, people will see that article, the title, and just read right there and be like, okay, I'm not gonna look into it. And same thing that happens with research studies. See research study that says something in the title. They actually go into the depths of the research study, and their findings actually point to something very different. So, it's just, unfortunately, that's just how most of us are wired, and the powers that be know that, and so try to manipulate the way we think and act. But grounding is super beneficial for health and for fitness. It's all just about bringing a proper perspective to the human body and creation. I'm always inspired by looking at the old school strongmen, the physical culturists, because that was a time before all these special gadgets, all these chemicals, all these fitness apps, these trackers, and they got work done. And interestingly enough, very few of them, at least the successful ones, talked about driving yourself into the ground, because that's what most fitness advice is these days. So, you just gotta train harder, and that may work for some people, but I know for myself, I have a job right now where I'm have very odd hours, so I can't get as much sleep as I usually do, at least quality sleep. And there are steps I take to improve what sleep I can get, but I'm not getting 7-8 hours usually. So if you're doing hard training like that, if you're doing the typical hard training that's recommended, and you're doing 8 hours sleep, you can somewhat benefit from it. But the more your lifestyle kind of hinders that recovery, the effectiveness of that training method, kind of comes to light. And so, all training modalities, all workouts, whether it be high intensity training, high intensity interval training, high volume training, what have you, all that stuff works. It'll work at different times depending on where you are in your life. What I'm most concerned about is what works under the worst conditions. And history has helped point me in the right directions. looking at some of the old-time strongmen and physical culturists. And I'll argue what works in the worst conditions points to how the human body actually works. And so I'll talk about this. I'm not sure if I've done it on this channel, but other places I've talked about my little spectrum, how, on one side, you give yourself a training stimulus. You have to really focus on, your sleep and your nutrition and all this other stuff. But on the other side, you just send a stimulus and your body just does the rest. So it's pretty much like, going from full range of motion to just like pure muscle tension. And this is a system that lasts for a couple of decades just based on that muscle tension and muscle relaxation. But yeah, it's just all about understanding the body, and if you work with the body, not against it, your health and fitness will come a lot easier. And I don't think there's any such thing as a hard gainer, someone that has to just stuff food in their mouth while they train to benefit, to adapt. It's just that the majority of the training methods that are recommended are very brutal to the body. There's more natural stuff you can follow to coax our body to better strength and muscle or endurance. So yeah, so that was it. But yeah, getting outside, touching some grass can work a slew of benefits for your health and for fitness. And so yeah, just what I've experienced. And so maybe you'll experience the same thing, but who knows. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.
I hate it, love it when the king of lights making me over, breaking me down, taking me through, taking me over, making me bolder, stronger, making me sober. But this world making me colder. I call the Lord when my heart is aching. Feel like my light is going out and feeling hard as pavement. I'm growing stronger in my reservations. I wonder why they said I'll never make it. Shaking it off is harder, work every day, shoot for the marker. What will they say when my departure comes and I ain't taking it farther? My life is leaking, my heart is beating. So do I turn back? I go for the deep end. Consider Jesus, what would he do?